Hey guys, and welcome to another season of the Us People podcast. I'm your host, Savia Rocks, and in this season, we uncover the remarkable power of genuine compassion and insightful vision. This season, we're here to show the world that we, as individuals, are the brand, regardless of misconceptions. Join us as we go deep into the inspiring journeys of our guests, each one a testament to the impact and influence of kindness and creativity. Don't just take my word for it. Hear their stories, feel their passion, and discover the transformative potential within us all. So stay tuned as we shine a light on the truths that connects us and inspires change.
Hey, my name is Joshua Jala. I'm an IT consultant and advocate for minorities trying to break into the IT space, into IT security, compliance, and more. You are listening to Us People podcast with the big boss, Savia Rocks.
Society has made me want to validate me.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Us People podcast. I'm your host, Savia Rocks, and today I am abundantly humbled to have Joshua here with me. He is an IT consultant and the founder of Act for Services. He is also one of the most humblest men I've ever come across, and he is a man of faith, which I love to always say on the show because I always believe we all have a faith in our own way that we follow and contribute to that helps us and guides us. So Joshua, I want to say thank you to you for coming on the Us People podcast. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm blessed to be here. Thanks for the invite. I've listened to a lot of your guest speaking, and I'm a huge fan of what you're doing. And yeah, I'm happy to be here. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So Joshua, my humble first question for you is, could you tell me a bit about yourself, where you grew up, and how that influenced you to be the person who you are today?
Thank you. So I would start off by saying, I'm Joshua. Some people call me Olufemi, Oluwafemi, Babatunde. Especially when you come from a Nigerian background where you've got loads of names most people I would call me Joshua, but my family call me Femi, and one or two friends call me AJ. I'm not sure why, but that's another story for another day. So I'm someone that loves sports. I'm a huge football fan, and and I love helping people, get to the next level, just encouraging and advising and doing research and just giving them some information on how they can improve and how they can move on to the next level. Because I believe we all have to help each other, because me getting to this stage in my life, I was helped by someone. I've got different mentors growing up. I think when I was back home in Nigeria, because I grew up in Nigeria, I went to University of Lagos.
Yes.
Even though the plan was to go to the US to study in the US, where my dad studied where my dad studied, but I guess in life sometimes, life just brings some certain things and everything just changed. So I had the opportunity to experience, studying in Nigeria, University of Lagos, studied also in the UK, London School of Accountancy and Management, and University of Greenwich.
I love that.
Where I did my master's. And along the line, so many mentors, coaches have helped me, which I need to, raise my hat and just say thank you to, people like one of my early uncle, you might know him, RMD.
Yes.
He always calls me and gives me advice and stuff. And his wife also, because we kind of grew up in the same community in a way. Yeah. And learned a lot from listening to another mentor, which is Dr. Tammy, Dr. Olusegun, and much more. Yeah, so to answer your question, I'm a servant. I like helping people because I believe in my work or in what I do, I'm here to serve, just like any other person in leadership, like the prime minister, the president, they all serve, So, yeah, and that's me.
See, this is what I love when we get to know who people are, because we can get to know about what they do, which we'll definitely go into. But getting to know the person, I believe, is half of who you are. Someone wise always said to me, someone wants to invest in you, they'll invest in who you are as a person as well as your business, which is, I think, completely true. So my next question for you is actually one of my favorite questions is, can you define yourself as a person? But also, Joshua, who do you see when you look in the mirror? But on the flip side of that question, has there ever been a time where you have looked in the mirror and not recognized the person staring back at you? How did you manage to go from a person that you may not have liked the vision of seeing to becoming a person that you feel has purpose in the world and is doing exactly what they want to do?
I like that question. It's got so many branches, right? You know what? The best way to answer is just to be honest and just tell you a little bit more about myself. Because, I feel like people can, or, young people can learn a little bit and, trying to use it for themselves. Yeah.
Yes.
So I remember back in the days, when I was had this car accident where I had stroke. So couldn't walk. Yeah, long story. But I just felt this is the best way to kind of like answer that question. So, right, and then I'll look in the mirror and I'll see myself on a wheelchair, right? Looked at myself in the mirror, said, well, I've got dreams. I wanted to play football. I wanted to get a scholarship I wanted to get a scholarship into university to, using my skills, because my dad used to play football. And my dad got 2 scholarships to study in the States because of his skills, and he was kind of like training me up. But again, back to the question, like, then I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, look, I've got dreams, I want to go into, I want to play football. I want to go into IT. I want to study IT. I want to study information technology. I want to go into compliance, security, and governance. I want to go into GRC, but I'm on this wheelchair and I'm looking at myself like, am I a failure, But looking at myself back then and taking a step of faith, because as I mentioned earlier, I'm a man of faith. And, I remember a book I read in Acts, which encouraged me. So when I look in the mirror and I see myself being a failure, right, or not achieving my dream, I go back to my books and, to read and to see, okay, well, has anyone felt this way? What have they done? Because in what I do, this what we call best practice, where you look in or you study and you find out different frameworks and you see how things are done, and you just take and apply to what you're doing, or when you're writing policies or procedures and stuff. So I'll go back and to my book and I just read and I'm like, okay, well, if this person went through this certain thing and did something to get back to a positive, or should I say, to encourage themselves, right? Well, if they can make it, I can make it, So I think back then, all I just needed to do, or all I did, was to look into myself and to pray, right? To talk, to pray, and just to say that, well, things will get better, I'm not going to be on this chair forever, I'm going to still achieve my dreams, Might take a while. But the funniest thing is, I took that step. I took that step of faith, right, by praying. And look at it. Today I'm working. Today I'm married. Today I've achieved my dreams. So when I look at the mirror, no matter how I look, no matter how I'm dressed, it's not about the outside, but the inside of what I've got inside, right? And being someone that's humble because of my upbringing and the way I was brought up, and advice that the mentors and coaches have given to me. When I look at myself, I see someone great, even though I've got some scars, I see them, well, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for those cards because those cards helped me to where I am today.
Exactly.
So looking at myself, I see myself as a leader. I see myself, standing amongst the greatest, people that have invented, have made decisions. But most important thing is when I look up in the mirror and look at myself, I see myself as someone that wants to help other people, that wants to encourage other people, that want to teach other people to get somewhere in their life, to make it in life. Success can be defined in so many ways, but I always say it's not about wealth for you to be successful, right? But the people around you, the people you add value to, so around you. So yeah, that's the way I look at myself in the mirror every morning from back then and now.
How long did it take you from having a stroke to even get back on your feet to? No, I'm just really interested because obviously I never knew any of this about you, and that in itself is a success story for me. That is a success story because you never gave up. You could have been, and this is what I mean about life. The one thing is that we can get ourselves into a situation and stay stuck there and get depressed there and then decide we're going to stay there. But you said, no, I want to walk again. I want to talk again. I want to be the man that I am meant to be for myself and for my family. How long did it take you to build the courage, to have the strength to walk again, to talk again? What was that like for you?
Yeah, well, okay, so basically what happened was, it was, I can still remember like yesterday. So it was just a good day, especially like Easter Sunday where everybody goes out, actually it's a coincidence because Easter is just around the corner, So I just went to get some drinks for myself, so just going back home, and I can't really remember much what happened, but to answer your question, how long did it take me? Well, the specialists, the doctors, and everyone said it'd take 5 years, right? However, it took me 2 weeks. Now, yeah, I know. So when this happened to me, right? If you use something heavy or an arm and you hit me on my left or my right leg,
yes,
I didn't feel anything. If you pinch me on my left or right, I didn't use a pin. I didn't feel anything, So, so from that to 2 weeks time, having able to work, because I can still remember this back like yesterday. Because remember when I started working, right? Everyone, the doctors, physiotherapists, everyone just, used to come around. They came around that particular day asking the question, how, they don't really know what to say because they've done research, they've got their PhDs and all that. Yeah. And they're like, man, this is not possible. I don't know what happened here, So it was just, let me say the way it is, it was a miracle, right? That's the honest truth, right? And how it happened, I can still remember, you asked me a question when I look in the mirror, what do I see?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right, cool. So, two people came to visit me, right? And they gave me this book, right? And, back then, we love books, got pictures, straight to the point, short stories, and that's it. Yeah. So I read the book now, and what touched me in reading the book was, the two people they were going somewhere, right? I'm just kind of I want to relate it to what's going on now, right? Two people going somewhere, beautiful place, and this person that is out of place there, and the person is like, hey, you just help me out, give me some money, things are hard, and those two people just said to him and said, well, we don't have money, we don't have gold, or we don't have silver, but this is what we've got, and they helped him up, and he took a step of faith, because there's one thing for you to ask for help, and there's another thing for you to receive that help.
Very
if you understand
true.
what I mean.
Very
So So two things I learned from that story is one, they would try to help that person, right?
Yes.
And that person also accepted their help, right? By reaching out, and believing what they said, right? Because you can help someone, but if that person doesn't believe or doesn't have faith, it's not going to work.
That's
It's
true.
not going to work. So, and I read that, and I said to myself, like, and I just said a little prayer to myself. I said, you know what, if this can happen, I don't want to believe in anyone, but I just want to believe in you, and I want you to tell me to stand up and walk. Even though it's impossible. It was meant to take about 5 years before I could even get my nerves back. Because what happened is uh, because of the impact and because of how the car hit me and how I fell and all that. So kind of like affected my nerves, started injury and all that. So the only way to fix it was to do an operation, which two things very risky at that age. First, and second thing is, well, what if something goes wrong while doing the operation? So the best the best decisions, once they sat down and made the decisions, okay, let's wait a while,
Yeah.
for about maybe 4 or 5 years, see how it goes, and then I'll be old enough to be operated on, right? Because they just needed to reduce the risk, for the operation to go successfully, right? So yeah, so that's how I found myself in the hospital, and someone that was working around playing football and now was depending on people to kind of like not really feed me, but kind of like take care of me, if you understand what I mean. Which was
Understood.
not, which was an experience. I think that's the best way to put it. Because I think back then I would say I was naughty. I'll use that word. No, I would say. I would say I was curious. I wanted to try this. I wanted to try that. While we're talking, I said I broke my hand. Just because watching some Spider-Man movies and stuff, trying to be like something or someone that I was not. Anyways, and that's a story for another day. Anyways, so
I like that.
let me get back to the question. So I got visited by two people. I didn't even know they were coming to visit me. I thought they were coming to visit one of my mates and beside me. So and they spoke to me and like they prayed for me and they gave me this Bible and they talked more about Acts, the book of Acts. And that's one of my favorite books in the Bible, actually, right? Um, I know everyone has got different faiths. It's just a personal thing,
Yes,
just
100%.
me, right? Yeah. So, was reading it. Saw my was reading it, and I was caught. I was more on focusing on that story, right? Right, and I looked at it and I said, what, God, why don't you tell me to stand up and walk? Even though the situation seems like it's not going to happen, but I want to take that faith. I want you to speak to me, and to make it happen, because I was in a situation where I've got the person beside me or the person opposite me is paralyzed from the neck down.
Wow.
The person beside me the same. Then the person opposite beside another bed also the same. So you can imagine, there was no encouragement anywhere around
Around
me
you.
in that space, right? And then for me now to say, you know what, I'm gonna encourage myself by praying, just by taking a step of faith. What do I have to lose?
Exactly.
Looking at it now, if I didn't make that prayer, I'll still be, that bed, I'm saying, on the wheelchair, but I took a step of faith and I just prayed, I said, God, just tell me to stand up and walk, that's it, a prayer of an innocent 9-year-old boy, and, I just woke up one morning, and normally the ladies will come around, give you your medications and all that, I had this voice and the voice is like, stand up and walk. And I'm like, okay. And I tried to stand up and the nurse saw me and I'm like, what are you trying to do? Sit down there, get okay, well, I don't want to say exactly what she said, but she said it in a nice way. I said, no. I feel like, something says you can work. I said, all right, come on. All right, then stand up. She's kind of saying it in a joking way, like, sure, right, you know what I mean, right? So I stood up, right, and I fell down flat on the bed. And she said, yeah, you're a naughty boy. I said it, you just get back on your bed, and just stay there. If you need anything, just press the bell and I'll come and, sort you out. So she left, and I went back on the bed, and again, the voice still came back, Um, and I just stood up beside my bed. I kind of like just, because my right side was still active, right?
Yeah.
It was just my left side, right? So kind of like just went on the other side. And my friend, may so rest in peace now, said to me, "What are you trying to do? Like, what's going on?" I said, something just says I should stand up and walk, and I just believe I can do it. And he said, "Okay, all right." So that voice was still there, and then he also was like, "All right, take it easy. If you feel you can do this, just stand up, just slowly, And I did, right? And then I took the first step, right? I wouldn't say it happened immediately. Like I just started to walk, like to walk and run and like, yeah. No, that was not how it worked. It was more like I took, just like a baby would take his first step, right? So I took the first step very slowly, took the second step, took the third step very slowly, took the fourth step, because again, I was like, I didn't want to fall. At the same time, I didn't want to rush it,
Yeah.
So I was happy that I was making progress, right? Little step, little faith, moving from my bed to my friend's bed. Then I walked back to the bed, to my own bed. And then I decided to walk to where the nurses were. I was trying to get their attention, and they were having this meeting, and they just didn't really care. Like, I wouldn't say they didn't care, but they're in a meeting, like, like you can wait, because they didn't really know what was happening, Then I left and I went back. Then I was in the hospital was more like a tea room, like, so you could
yes.
you go straight, and then you've got left side and the right side, and I can't remember what how the words are called. Then I saw a friend of mine, and he saw me, and he was at that side. They were okay; they could do everything, but he had some issues with his eyes, And he saw me, and he just ran up to me and just kind of like gave me a hug, like, how? Like we were all just together just yesterday, what happened, So I sat down, and he was like, "Do you want anything to drink or whatever?" I said, "No, I'm fine." So we're just talking and everything. And next minute, I kind of like saw a lot of people coming to where I was, like, "What are you doing here? Like, we've been looking all over for you. Like, your wheelchair is beside your bed." We were like, I said, yeah, I walked to visit my friend, and she was like, "Yeah, sure, right?" Like, that was how she said it, right? And then the other ladies came around, like, "Oh, yeah, he's right here." Said, "Don't give us a heart attack. We thought you were kidnapped or something, And I said to them, I could walk, and she said, "Yeah, sure, you can walk. Okay, walk towards me then." So I stood up from the chair and I walked towards where she was standing, and she didn't even allow me to get to where she was. And she just kind of like just rushed towards me and just gave me a hug, like squeezed me. I was like, "I can't believe this. Like, how, And the other ladies were like all shocked, and people were just coming into the ward throughout that day looking like, what's happening here? Like, he's working. How is he working? It's not possible, my physiotherapy came around, and she was shocked herself, like, how did this happen? So going back to how it happened, it's more of me just taking a step of faith and just praying and just being humble about the situation, about say, "Lord, I believe in you. Just speak to me, And that gentle voice, just said, stand up and walk, and I did, and I've been using that in my journey in life.
Yes.
Okay, because in life we experience some certain things that changes us,
Yeah,
right?
that is true.
I believe that I think it was good it happened to me, right? Because I wonder the kind of person I would have been, if that did not happen to me.
Yeah.
If you understand what I mean, right? So I kind of like use it, and I kind of like, well, somebody came to me and just shared something with me and helped my faith, and I applied it and I tried it, and I prayed and it worked, right? And yeah, I'm grateful to that now today. So my goal in life is just to go around, help someone, advise someone, push someone, share my experience, of how I got my first job, how I got into tech, how I got my first contract job, how I worked in the financial sector, and being a man of integrity. Also, like trying to just to take to people like, don't give up, right? If you feel you don't know this, well, this is what you need to do. Just study this, just learn it, share some videos with them in order for them to just build themselves and for them to move up to the next level. Yeah, so that's the best way to summarize it. If not, we'll be here till tomorrow.
I don't mind, honestly, because I don't mind. I'm a lady who likes listening to people's stories, believe me. So when people tell me stories, I find it fascinating because I know that I am learning from them the same way that they might be learning something from me. I think I think in life it always works both ways, and I think if you're always fascinated with everything, you'll always contribute and you'll always learn because you always want to learn. So
yeah,
I love that. I completely love that. So my next question is, let's talk about, because you spoke a little bit about IT consulting, So I want to talk about you being an IT consultant, what you do, but also being the founder of Acts for Services. Please do tell me a lot more about what you do.
Yeah, I will. So the name, I think I've already given you a clue why the name came up. Actual Services, right? Yep. So I think back then when I was working, well, I'm still working in the financial sector, but when I was working, I don't really want to mention names. So when I was working and they made a team redundant, right? So just looking, I was applying everywhere, going for interviews and stuff. And sometimes in life, you've got people in your network or people you grew up with, or even someone in your family that would say negative stuff, right? And because over here in the UK, and the US is both different places, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So in the UK over here, you've got people like, oh, you know what? I don't have a job. I'm just gonna, just chill out and just, that's it. And I had people like that around me, like, or should I say, one person around me that was like, kind of giving me some negative advice. I think that's the best way to put it.
You have to be careful.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like,
careful.
Well, that's not the way I was brought up, right? That's one. My dad, my mom didn't raise me up that way.
Yeah.
And early in life, I worked in my family's business in the NGO. My mom created an NGO called Honeybee for Women in Distress.
Yes.
Which I was part of, which I learned a lot from working under her leadership. So I'm like, I'm not going to listen to what negative advice you're giving to me, right? And I just still applying here and there. I just got a phone call one day, just, hey, we saw your CV online. Can you start tomorrow? We've got this role in the financial sector, and I just need you to start tomorrow. I said, yeah, okay. We're gonna need you to have your own limited company, and and all that. I said, okay, no problem. Have you got one? I said, yeah, sure. I've got one. You want me to start tomorrow? Yeah, I'm gonna be there tomorrow. What time? Like, yeah, we need you to be at 8:00. I said, nah, I'll be there for 7. So the conversation ended. Like, it was a 5 minute phone call, right? And 5 to 10 minutes, right? And, after I dropped the call, I made some other calls to my mentors around me and my coach and said, I just got this call for this job in the IT space, even though I studied, I've worked in the IT and I've studied master and I did my master's in information systems management and business strategy and I have some different certifications. I was like, okay, I need to set this up. Okay, so I set up the limited company, and then the name. Like, okay, what name am I going to give to this business now? Right? I thought and I prayed about it, and I just remembered, like, look, my goal in life is my goal in life and my purpose in life. I'm always praying every day, like, what is it, right? And I went back to what happened to me, and I remembered Act 4. I remembered the book of Acts. I said, wow, all right, I'm going to use myself and I'm going to act, and I'm going to call the company Act 4 Service. Act 4 Services, right? Because I believe I'm here to serve, right? In order to be a leader, you have to serve. As I said, every leader serves, or should I say, is a servant, right? Got the prime minister, you've got the president, they all go through a process where everyone has to, like, make a decision. Okay, you're going to be the leader. You're going to be the one that's going to, provide or make those strategic decisions for the community, for the country, for the economy and all that, So that came up and it just sticked, and I just gave you that name. And that contract role was meant to be 3 months, right? That's it, and while I got that contract, I got another role, which is full time. So I had these two roles in front of me, and one was full time, which means you get paid every year, every month, and one is just a short contract of 3 months.
Yes.
I know if you if you ask anyone and say choose one, you go for the one that is full time. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna take a step of faith and take the 3 months, right? And see how it goes and see what I can learn, being in that environment, and then taking that step of faith, after that 3 months and see what happens, right? And I was there for about 3 years plus.
See?
That contract role, where I learned a lot. I learned compliance, governance, risk, audits. I joined different. I joined ESECA, I joined BSI, and I attended meetings and listen to people and listen to their experience, and that's how we started. And I enjoyed I thank God that I was able to meet people also in that environment that mentored me, like Matt, Martin, a lot of people that I met, right, that kind of like gave me, or should I say, hold my hand and just say, oh, Joshua, this is what you need to do. Why don't you spend some time reading this, right? Okay, you're a consultant, right? You need to be more technical in this area. Why don't you try this, okay? And, one thing I've learned growing from my parents is you have to be humble.
Very
right?
much so.
So whatever they say to me, I just listen, I remember the CTO, one of the CTOs that was always on my case, especially because I rushed down into the office, the way I'm dressed, just wear a jacket. I like wearing a t-shirt, and say, no, Josh. No, it's American. No, you need to wear a tie. Your tie needs to be, up to the hair, up to there, like, okay, all right, cool, no worries. I had to invest in myself also, change my wardrobe and everything because it was a great opportunity, And then he would see me like a couple of weeks or months, say, Joshua, good job. Yeah, I love the way you're dressing. Come, let's go have a drink. I don't really drink that much. I'm a very light drinker, just one, but I'll just I don't want to be rude. I'll go along and just listen to him and hear more of his experience and all that. And that's how I got in there, and that's how I got that opportunity, and I started to build my career from there. And I always remember that in life or in wherever I find myself, someone helped me, someone advised me, someone pushed me, right? And I have to do the same, right? Because in this world, I feel if we all help each other to be a better place, But at the same time, I understand that human beings are selfish. Well, which is something that's from birth. It's not that I wouldn't say, oh, no. I expect everyone to be selfish, but because of the things I've experienced and my upbringing and the people around me, right, it's kind of like changed everything about me that even though I expect A, B, C from certain people,
Yes.
it doesn't mean I'm going to be like those certain people. Instead, I want to make a difference, right? To adding value to someone or helping out someone. For example, I think I was working on a project and, had some consultant to do some jobs. And one of the guys came to me and was like, Joshua, I like to do what you're doing, but I don't know where to start. I don't even know if I can do it, Can you just advise me on something, right? And I took my time off. I said, you know what? All right, let's have a chat, right? Okay, I'm going to draw you a roadmap on how you can achieve this goal, right? I said, you're already doing this already. You've already got good customer service. You just need one or two things added to your skill sets, and then you'll be able to move on to the next ladder, and I was able to just use my own experience, like, okay, go do this training, do this exam. When you're confident enough, right, just let me know. This is some resource that you can use, and then you'll be able to get yourself skilled up and apply for certain positions in your firm or in the firm that you're here to do some job, right? I mean, in the firm that you're working. So yeah, and it was really grateful. And while I was doing that, someone else was watching me actually, right? One of the someone in management, one of the senior guys, and he called me up and said, you know what? I like the way you didn't look down at him. You just helped him out. You gave him information. I haven't shared my contact details with him. Feel free to give me a shout anytime, because this is what I like to do. I like to, I like to just kind of like just help someone. If you come to me and ask me a question, I'll give you the answer if I know. If I don't know, go do some research and I'll still give you some information on how you can achieve that goal, right? And at the end of the day, the person became good friends, So I helped someone. So he now helped me and said, Joshua, you know what? I think you're very good in this area. You're very, why don't you also go do this training, do this exam, or do this training, and, this can get you up to the next level, which I did, So look at it, helping someone, and then someone else comes, out of the blues to just help you out. So in life, we just need to we don't have to be greedy, right? Just help everyone. Anyone you can help out.
Yes.
Just, give them a shout, because my prayer every morning when I get up is, let me be a blessing to one person, just one person, not everyone, because it's impossible to reach out to everyone, just one person, right? And this is something that, let me tell you the story. So back in uni days, we needed to take 6 months to do some training, right? Not training, to do get work experience, right? Either voluntary work experience, paid, just you need to do that 6 months in order for you to graduate. So I took my time and I applied for voluntary work in Lambeth,
Yes.
UCL, and some other places. Applied online. And I got 3 offers, 3 volunteer roles, right? And I went in and I said, all right, what do I have to lose? Nothing. All right. So I did that, and say, oh, Joshua, I need you to be here by 9 p.m. I'll be there like 8:30, what do you need me to do, And I would confess that, look, there was sometimes I found the work challenging because I didn't know it. But because I was humble enough to say, and look, I don't know this, but I'm going to give it a shot, right? They were able to kind of like direct me and push me that, oh, this is what you need to do. This is where you get the resource and the knowledge to be able to solve this problem. This is the problem domain. How do you solve the problem? You go, you do some research, you look at best practice, what people have done, try it, apply it, and see if it works in a test environment before then moving it into production. So I did all that. And after I finished the 6 month, I got a job out of it. Right? Got a job, not even a job out of it. I even got an award out of it. I got about 3 awards. One from Lambert. Well, actually, they're all from Lambert, actually. And a community called Clapham Park Project. That's the name. Yeah. And I got 3 awards. And, one of the guys called me and did an interview. And I didn't even, I just said how my experience, I just shared my experience, why I took the voluntary work, what I learned growing up. And he wrote about it and it was published. And there was this event which I was invited to. So I just went out and said, you know what, I'm going to give you guys a hand, help you out, set everything up, just a good event, lots of food and stuff, right? Did my bit and I'm like, okay, all right, I've had enough. I'm off. See you guys. And on my way, this lady just called me and she said, hey, hi, Joshua. Like, okay, what's going on? Hi, how can I help? Because I was kind of like focused just going to where I was going, and the someone just called me and said, hi, called my name. I don't know her before, I'm like, so I was like, how do you know my name, first of all, and then she went on, and said, hi, please don't be afraid. I said, I don't know. Did I do anything? No, it wasn't me, So, anyway, that's a joke. So she said, well, I read about you a couple of weeks and I was touched and I was motivated also because she was a single mother and she had lots of time in her hand because, our kids are grown up so she could do stuff, right? And she was like, I looked at my life and I listened to your story and I felt motivated and now I'm out there to do things also. And she was grateful that she was grateful that she read about it and grateful that I shared it also. Right? And she said, thank you, like you've pushed me. And I said, well, you're welcome, And we left that, and I moved on. And on my way, I was just thinking like, whoa, I didn't even know that I was doing that, I only just shared my story and one person read it and has applied it or has got a, or should I say, looked at herself and said, well, if Joshua can do this with all this,
Yep.
I can do it too. She went out there and I don't know where she is now, but excuse me. But the thing is this in life, you don't know what people are going through. You don't know what people, and whatever you do, people are watching you, people are learning from you. So that's how I got into IT, and that's how I got those awards and stuff. And in my work environment, in my workplace, I try as much as possible to make sure that I help people around me. And if I'm doing something, someone's having issues, I just leave it and say, "What's the problem? Okay, let me see how I can help." Okay, this is not my department, or this is not something that, but I'll give you a hand. I can point you to the right direction, and then we'll take it from there. Yeah. So that's the best way to answer that question. And if you want me to go more, well, we'll be here till tomorrow.
You always say that. You always say that. No, but that's the beautiful thing is that it's the journey of being able to go somewhere. It's the journey of understanding, presenting yourself in a way. But then most of all, it's the passion that you have for what you do. And it's funny, when we think people are not watching, that's when they're watching the most. That's when people are watching the most with us. So I will say to you, keep doing what you're doing. The right people will see you, and that's all you ever need in your life, to be quite fair. People think that you need, billions of people to know who you are. That's not necessarily true. When I pray, it's a little bit different for me. I always say, universal God, whoever you believe in, I always say, bring the right people in front of me, and I will present myself in the way that I need to, in order for them to help me and for me to help them. And that's how I do it. And I think it works that way because there is a humbleness. I remember someone saying to me, that you shouldn't say humble because humble is a weakness. I said, no, that's not true at all. Humbleness is actually a strength that you have to be able to present yourself and articulate yourself in a way that, says that you are kind enough to be able to be strong and abundant in what you do, but still have the courtesy to respect everyone around you. That is different. Yes, we all need confidence in what we do, but you don't need to be cocky about it. You don't need to be overconfident, because then that's when people don't want to invest in you, because they see something, maybe he's going to be over cocky for how he is or she is as a person, and then ruin themselves. Because sometimes ego, as we spoke about previously, ego can be a detriment to us, not for us. So it depends on who we are and how we present ourselves to the world and people. That says a lot about us. So I love the fact you said
one
that.
thing like that. Yeah, you're right. One thing my parents taught me growing up, whenever you're in an environment, just humble yourself, talk less, listen more.
Exactly that.
And it's something that every day I try to apply to myself. And then most of the time, maybe end of the week, or if something happened, I do a risk assessment, self-assessment, of myself, and said, how did I handle this situation? What did I learn from this, right? Or was there a better way, right? Okay. Most people now find it difficult to get a job, right? They apply, every morning till evening, Mondays to Sunday, nothing, right? But me, I can only use my own experience, right? I've been in that situation also, right? I've been in a situation where I've applied, nothing, right? But I take a step of faith. I go to events. I mentioned as circle, right? So I remember I went for a second event where we were talking about cars. We're talking about insurance. We've got cars now that drive themselves. We've got different technologies back then that are now, people are using. And we had, it was a good event. I remember I spoke to, I was dressed, for the event, because again, something I was taught by one of the CTOs, when I started my journey, right? And I was there in the event, and I was speaking to someone, and we had a very good conversation. I was just there to just learn, and then just talk about stuff I'm doing, just to get more knowledge. I look at it, 2, 3, 6 months later, I applied for a job. The person I spoke with was the person that was interviewing me for the role. Now, I don't have his contact details, right? We just had a good chat. That's all. And then apply for a role, and it's the hiring manager. I didn't even recognize him, to be quite honest, right? And we went through the interview, good conversation, left there, not up to 15, 30 minutes, got a call, they want you, when can you start? I said, oh, really? Okay. All right, 4 weeks notice, went through the process, did my compliance checks, and went in. And when I was working on the project, because the project was more writing policies and procedure in line with ISO 27001 and NIST, and doing some compliance and audit stuff. How would I put this? Wearing different hats on different days. I think that's the best way to put this, right? And we had lunch, and she said, Joshua, I said, yeah. I said, how you find it? I said, I'm enjoying it. I said it's stressful, but I'm enjoying it. I'm learning. Again, being humble. And he said to me, do you remember our conversation, like blah blah blah, years ago, months ago, 2, 3, 6 months ago. And I'm like, what conversation? He said, don't you remember me? I said, no. I said, yeah. And he reminded me of the conversation we had, reminded me of the event. And I totally forgot, right? And everything just, came back when we were having that conversation. Now, again, if I had applied for roles and I did not go for the event, I would not have met, this person, right?
Exactly that.
Yeah, and because the person saw me, I'm like, well, this guy's made the effort. He's ticked all the boxes. He's got the certification. He's got the training. He's worked in the financial sector for a while. He knows about security, compliance, audit. He knows how to implement frameworks, which is what we need. And I've met this young man, in an event, and I like the way he communicates, right? And he said, yeah, and that's how I got that role, right? So sharing my own experience on how I got into a certain space, right? Just sharing with other people, because again, I mentioned best practice, right? If you know you're looking for work, if you know you're applying for work, you're not getting it, try and do something else. Try and be creative, right? Use the tools that you've got to sell yourself,
Yes.
right? Because again, you don't know who's watching. You don't know who's watching.
That's true.
We might not. You might look at it and like, oh, I come from a background where, I didn't go to the best university in the world. I'm competing with A, B, C, or D. But honestly, just be honest, right? Right? Look for someone to mentor you, or someone to coach you, right? And then you'll be able to achieve that goal and move to the next level, right? And if you find yourself in the next level, right, and you feel it's an experience, try again.
There you go.
You take that experience and you build on it, right? Most companies like Disney and the rest, they all started somewhere, they all failed. And look at them now, they're very successful. So sometimes take your failure, take it in, see if you see yourself, you fall down, if you can look up, get up, try again.
And
right?
another thing is, Joshua, I'm so glad you said that. The one thing I would say is don't worry about also, because people have a complex about this, how old they are. And you're smiling. A lot of people say to me to get to a certain age and then they think, oh, I'm too old, and that's not true at all. There are some people who have started, successful companies at the age of 60, 70, 80, and you'll be very surprised, and they leave what they call, some people believe in the word legacy, some people don't, but they leave something major behind even when they go. A lot of what it is in society today, and I don't know, I'd love to hear your opinion on it. A lot of people feel that you should be young and get everything young. I don't always believe that, so because it corrupts your mind, you can easily get manipulated. You haven't learnt the wisdom that you need to learn. There are some people who are young who get it and are very grounded, and I commend them, and that is awesome. But there are also people who are older and get it because they needed to get it at that age, because they were ready for it then. If they got it earlier, it wouldn't have worked for them. They got it later. So it just depends on people's mindsets. I don't know your perspective on this, and I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I was actually just looking for a post I replied on LinkedIn too, because there's a certain post about certain age, going into programming, learning programming language like Python and other different, like learning Python, learning PowerShells, Bash scripts, and all that, and someone was saying, "Well, I'm getting old for this," that I think it was in his late. Actually, I can't remember the age, but there was this article about a lady. She went into programming at age 80, 70 or 80. I'm just trying to look for the name, because the name just I can't remember her name, but she went in there in a very late stage of her life, right? She built an app. She got an award from Apple, right? And from right, she's got books and she's been invited to different places where she shares her experience and tries to encourage people.
See?
So age is nothing, right? The fact that one person made it at age 20, 30 millions, well, that's his own life. Everyone has got different race, right? So if you go into, if I use the word blessed to go into programming and go into tech in a very early age, good for you. But if you're old, like 30, 40, even 50, 60, it's not too late. You can still make it, you can still learn, right? That's it. That's it. So no one should ever feel the pressure that, oh, I'm getting old, I can't learn this. No, we're in an era where we've got technology, we've got AI, we've got tools that you can use. Well, that's if you know how to use it. However, there are tools also that will teach you how to use it in order for you to be able to learn programming, to learn how to what AI is, what compliance is, what security is, what IT infrastructure is, right? If you want to go on the route of being a GRC and an analyst, or if you want to be an audit, if you want to be an IT consultant, there's so many different paths, so many information, so many books. If you're not lazy, you'll make it. You'll make it. So that first thing I always say to people is just remove that fear, right? And even though it's F, right, change it to faith. Have that faith, right? And just believe that you learn it and you make it. Right? I've been in situations in life where people have said negative things. Right, oh man, you ain't gonna make it, man. No, no, no. And I'm like, okay, right, fine. You've got the opportunity to get to where you are because probably maybe you come from a blessed family, wealthy family, right, where you can just easily just go up the ladder, right? But there's this movie I used to work back in the days, called Senseless,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
It's a comedy, although some people might not like it, but there's something I picked up from that movie, right? Two people contesting for a particular job, right? One's family, one's father is the founder, the director, the CEO of the company, brings in, the top people to train his son in order to compete in this competition where he would not be able to use his power for his son to get that admission or to get into that role. And then there's another dude who's come from, if I can use the word, the ghetto, right? That doesn't have that experience, that comes from a broken family where he's had to just survive from age 16, 17, to pay the bills, to take care of himself, right? And they're both competing for that same role, right? Even though the movie went in a very slight different direction, right? But one thing I learned from it is if you don't give up and you learn and you study, right? And you look for ways, when I say ways, ways where you can study, have a process, have a roadmap, right? And be humble if you know that, oh gosh, I'm struggling in this area. Look for people that can mentor you, or that can coach you, right? In order for you to get that skill set. And even if you don't find people that can help, that can coach, that can mentor you, just go online. It's a lot of videos, a lot of YouTube videos. You use the tools that you have to learn that skill, right? And take time off to apply that skill to yourself, and you'll be able to move up to the next or to get that role or that position. Like while I went for an interview, my very first job in the financial sector, right? Went for the interview and I can still remember to today what I was wearing, right? I was wearing, normally you go for an interview, you wear your white shirt, where you're either blue tie and your jacket and everything, right? And I can remember that I was called for that interview on that same day, where I thought I would. That was not a company I wanted to work for. It was another company, but the company was bigger than the other company. But I didn't do my research on the company when I got the invitation for the interview, right? So I was wearing a purple shirt. The tie was kind of like blue black. Anyway, the color wasn't just matching. Let's just put it that way. I was wearing two different pair of socks. One blue, one black. This is a true story. I'm not making this up. True story, right? And I went for the interview, and I just thought like I want to do something different for this interview. Because the last interview I went for, even though I did the first stage, second stage, and I went to the final stage, third stage, I didn't get that role. And I didn't know why, because I thought I did well, after going through like 4 stages, right? And then I just said, okay, this interview, I'm going to do something totally different, right? I want to like just stand out, So I went in there, I took my awards, right? And I did a presentation, right? And that's how I started the interview. And there were like 4 people in the interview. 1 person was beside me taking notes, and 3 people were on the screen, and I was in the building where, I was in the company. I was at the company in the London office. Yeah, did the interview, answered the questions, first did a technical test, and then the main thing itself. It's where I talked about myself, and the interview it was a good experience, but I did it, and I said, I'm just going to try something different. So, after the interview, I said, okay, last question. When am I going to get feedback? Say, oh yeah, we've got all the candidates we're going to interview. We've got about 6 people that have applied for this role. They've got to the stage. So it might take a couple of months, maybe probably 2-3 months. I said, okay, all right, fine. All right, okay, bye. Like, well, move on to the next one. I'm not going to wait till 3 months. I got bills to pay, But in 2 weeks, I went for another interview. And I finished that interview, and on my way, I received lots of missed calls and voicemail. Said, "Oh, Joshua, we've been trying to reach you. Remember you did an interview for a company, ABC? Yeah, I remember." Said, "Oh, they've just gotten back to me now. Have you got a moment? Can you just can we go jump on a call?" Said, "Okay." Said, "Yeah, you've got the role, right?" And I said, "Okay." So the role was meant to be 3 months, but they offered it to you for full time, So really, I said, well, you did really well. So I went, that's how I got that job, did my checks and everything. And the feedback I got when I started the job was, your interview is different. They said, no one has ever done what you've done, right? That you came in, said most people would bring their CV and say, oh, they've done ABC. He said, but this time around, you came in with your CV and you gave us proof that you've done ABC on your CV, right? So you did a presentation, which they loved, and they looked at it and said, whoa, you took time off to do all this in just 2 days. Okay. Oh, you've got this. You've got this certification and training. Oh, you've got evidence to show to this at this stage, right? Okay, and this is and they were like, we're looking for talents, right? This is what we are looking for, So they didn't look at the way I was dressed, which was, wasn't that great, or the way I looked. Right?
But you may think it's not great, but they might have think it's actually quite different. No, seriously.
Trust me, if I show you that picture, you would run.
You know what? I need to see this picture.
Anyway, so they gave me the chance, and I worked with senior people, and again being humble and with all the knowledge and wisdom that has been passed over to me by my mentors, coaches, and my parents. I was able to use that and to get up to the next level. There's sometimes when you're working as a consultant or you're working in tech, you have to make sure you have that, the way you talk, mustn't be too high, mustn't be too low, it has to be respectful, in the way you talk. And in what you do, you also have to have that skill set of, being a good customer service, to have that skill set of being someone that would solve problems, one, and you have to have that good customer service approach in whatever you do, and how you talk. So that kind of like has helped me a lot, because in everything I do, I still say I'm just a servant. I'm here to serve you. You pay me and I'll serve you. What you want me to do? You want me to do A, B, C? No problem. Let's just shake hand and agree on the fees, and then the rest is history. So whatever I find myself or whatever I do, first thing is be humble, get that right tone, and then take it from there. And if you're in an environment where you've got people around you where you can say, where they don't kind of like respond to you in a way like, oh, get in the office in the morning, good morning, blank. Don't stop. Keep saying that good morning. One day they would answer you back, right? And one day they'll be like, you never give up. You're a nice guy. I say, well, I'm work in progress. I'm there. And that's it in life. Let your personality, your character, let people look at that and say, you know what, we can do business with you. You know what, we like you to be a part of our team or part of this project.
Yes.
And then whatever you learn, also pass it down to people around you or people that want that I think they can't do it, but just share that experience with them and just encourage them, because at the end of the day, as I said, if we encourage each other to be a better place, a better community, a better country.
Do you know what? I think that's a nice way to actually end the podcast, even though I've got one more for you and the time has actually flown. I can't believe how fast it's gone.
Wow.
My last question for you is, I would love for people to be able to get in contact with you, to be able to understand who you are more, or just find out information about you and what you do as a contribution to yourself. Please do let us know where they can find you.
Yes, if anyone wants to reach out, you can send me an email to hr@act4services.com.
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. You can get my details in LinkedIn. You can just, I think there's a little bit of filter on my LinkedIn page, but you can feel free to send me a message on my personal email or on LinkedIn, right? If you just do a search and just search for Olufemi Joshua Jala with a bracket,
Yes.
you should be able to see my profile online, and we can take it from there. I do write articles and on how best practice out there and how people can just learn from my own experience from what I do. Or you can send me an email to my personal email address, which is Oscar Alpha Juliet Alpha Lima Alpha @life.com.
I like that. Joshua, this is where I say thank you so much for taking your time, for having conversations with me before that were brilliant. Having this conversation with you, that was absolutely awesome. But more than anything, for you just being yourself, expressing the fact that you want to help people in the world and contribute to society and community. But most of all, for your kindness of who you are as a person. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome, and thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome. And this is where I say, guys, I want to thank you for listening to the Ask People podcast. And please remember, you can subscribe and leave us a review on Spotify, iTunes, Google, or any other platform that you prefer listening to. You can also connect with us every Thursday at 8 p.m. UK time on Apple TV, Fire TV, Freeview Channel 271, or YouTube. You can also listen to us again on Heart Songs Live every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Or you can listen to the Us People podcast, which I record a pre-recorded episode of the Us People podcast for you to listen to every Tuesday. And this is where I say, guys, thank you so much for listening. Stay happy, stay positive, and as always, please continue to be kind to one another. Take care.
Society has made
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's never, the way I answer this is it's never too late for someone to go into IT, to go into programming, or to go into security and compliance, or even to learn about AI. Look, there's an example. There's someone I read about called Masako Wakamaya. She went into coding in her 80s and built her first application at the age of 81. Look, this person we're talking about was given birth to in 1936. So you can just imagine, for someone our age to, read about programming, and then build an application, using Swift, which is kind of like similar to Python in a way. And not only that, she got recognized by Apple. She won an award, and she's good at what she did. She took time off, studied about the application, and created something. So to answer your question, it's never ever too late for someone to go into IT, or to become a programmer or developer. If she can do it at the age of 80 plus, what about you? We don't have any excuse. It's just gonna take time to study, to learn those skill sets. To read about, to try creating something, and then take it from there. That's what I'll say. So it's never ever too late for someone to go into programming. Look at me myself. I learned how to use Visual Basics. I learned how to use Python. I learned how to use different programming language, Bash, PSQL, and much more. So if I can do it, if she can do it, there's no excuse. You also can do it.
Why we dance on TikTok? Why we dance on TikTok? Why we dance on TikTok? Why we dance on TikTok?